Gear Tasting Radio is brought to you by Imminent Threat Solutions. ITS provides knowledge that empowers individuals with indispensable skill sets to explore the world and prevail against all threats. Right now, as a special thank you for all podcast listeners, we're offering 10% off in the ITS store. Simply use the code GTR to save 10% at store.itstactical.com. Welcome to Gear Tasting Radio, where we offer an in-depth look into the usage and philosophy behind the equipment in our lives. I'm joined, as always, by Rob Henderson.
Hello.
And I'm Bryan Black. Today, we are taking a look at the signaling portion of the bag, the bug-out bag we are redoing. I still hate that term. However, bolt bag is really what I call it, but for the sake of understanding what we're talking about, I'll just use the term bug-out bag. So, we had looked at, I think, shelter last time. Yeah, we were talking about building shelter and what to carry for that in your bug-out bag. And today, we're basically breaking down what I had in there and what I will have in there. So I'm making some changes, lightening it up, using different things that I've learned about in the last 5 years as what I would make some changes with in my bag. So what I had in there were 4 Chemlights, or snap lights, silent lights, whatever you call them. I call them Chemlights. A kind of common misnomer with Chemlights is that there's a hardcore, hard and fast expiration date on them with it, which is not true. I've used a Chemlight that's like 10 years expired.
Yeah, I was gonna say we cracked one open after 10 years.
Yeah, and they're still good.
It's fine.
So a lot of people also think that you need to leave them in the foil to hold that expiration date, and you don't. They'll still work even if they haven't been stored in foil. So the foil is not, there's not some secret air ingredient in here that's
not like filled with nitrogen.
Right. So I actually like keeping them open and ready to go for certain applications. I don't mind leaving them in the packaging for certain things, but one thing that I've kind of come across in the last couple of years is that I like having one of these rigged as a buzz saw. So I'll tie a piece of small diameter cordage, like type 1 paracord, on it, and I'll have a length ready to go. So if you crack the Chemlight and spin it, you're kind of creating or widening that view of the Chemlight. So it's kind of a low energy way to make a broader signal.
And it's bright at night, especially.
It's very bright.
I like that too because you can take that cordage, you can throw it over something if you need to like hang a Chemlight or put it somewhere specifically. Yeah,
and you can also spin it overhead too. So if something is coming, over you, like a search helicopter or something like that, you can swing it over your head too and create that same type of movement there too. So I would still carry the 4 Chemlights that I had in here. However, just like I just opened this, I'm going to rig this one as a buzzsaw, kind of ready to go. And then I also had a signal mirror. And while other things in the kit, like my Silver Ranger compass, have a signal mirror in it, and I've also changed compass brands too. I used to really love this Silver Ranger, and I'll get into that once we get into navigation. But either way, I'm still going to use a mirrored compass, so it'll still have a lid that has a mirror in it. And just open this up real quick. So, most of them have a mirror inside of there, which could be used as a signal mirror. However, I really like the dedicated signal mirrors like this. It's pretty lightweight. It's a larger diameter. It's got instructions on the back of how to use a signal mirror for those that really don't understand that concept. But what I really like is these star flash mirrors have a little cutout in the middle where you can actually see through it. So the purpose of that is to line this up with whatever you're trying to signal, and then reflecting off of that.
It gives you a way to target.
Yeah, and it has a protective cover over the mirror too, so you're not getting it scratched up in your kit.
That's cool.
As you're storing it.
I haven't seen that cover before.
Yeah, and it's really light too. Yeah. I really like it because it's kind of like a full-fledged signal mirror. And yes, there's smaller ones. Like we have one in our little mini survival kit that's very small. It doesn't have any cutout in the middle, but it will work in a pinch. However, it's designed to be super small and compact, whereas this is, kind of a dedicated signal mirror. So I really like that. And then I've also got an MPIL, which is basically kind of a more traditional, a more modern version of a VS-17 panel. So if you've been in the military and you're familiar with what a VS-17 panel is It's basically a signal panel, so it's like a recognition panel, really. It's for signaling, you could wave it around, but really it's kind of a bright colored fabric panel that really just allows you to be identified. So that's kind of the situation with the VS17. So I would hang this in a situation where I wanted someone to find me, just as another visual indicator of where I am, because it's not like anything in nature. So meaning...
Yeah, these colors... Anyone that's watching the video can see that these colors are not occurring in nature. It's really weird when you first see especially the magenta, you're kind of like,
yeah, it's really tough. It's kind of like a blaze orange side, and then there's a bright magenta side too. So it replicates what the standard VS17 panel looks like. So I have a cut down VS17 panel, like the traditional military one.
So cut down from the full size,
correct.
Which is, I can't remember.
The full size is huge.
Yeah.
And it's used, in a lot of applications in the military. However, like more so like vehicle identification.
Like
so
on the hoods and stuff.
Correct. But cutting them down was kind of the way that it was done before Battle Systems came out with the MPIL. So until they did this was really your only option. So I've always just kind of hung on to this cut down one. And that was what was in the kit too, along with the MPIL. And the MPIL is like super lightweight.
It really is.
It's like a ripstop, like a lightweight nylon ripstop fabric that's different colors, so it's sewn together. And then it's got some loops that you can use to hang it from the corners. And then on the interior or center of the MPIL, there's also a little loop square on each side. So if you needed to put something like an IR square for kind of identification, friend or foe kind of thing, you could do that as well if you were in that kind of situation. Most people won't find themselves in that situation, that are listening to this podcast. However,
but if you
that's
do,
what it is. Yep. And then I also had a rescue whistle. This is a little ACR rescue whistle.
I'm already shying away because you've blown it like 4 times.
So in the Navy, we kind of use these P whistles, and that's not like number 1 whistle. There's if you can hear that, there's a little, I guess that's a cork ball inside of it. So if you've ever heard the term P-less whistle, that's kind of what that means, is that it doesn't have a little ball that it's dependent on to function. And I like that because it can get damaged. There is the potential for it to get messed up. However, this is the same whistle we used to use attached to our UDT vests when we do the 2-mile ocean swims and stuff like that. So it's not really, and we'd use it for signaling purposes. So meaning if you had to get the boat's attention, if you were in trouble, you would use your signal whistle, and it's attached to the little oral inflation tube that was on our UDT vest. So it was used for that. But however, I really like the P-less ones because even if water's in there, it'll drain out and you can use it really quickly, and it's not dependent on that cork
real
in
thin
there.
too,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah, it's super lightweight, super thin.
And it's loud.
Yeah, it's very loud. And what I like about it is it's more controlled too. So you can really get kind of Morse code level of efficiency with it. So the bursts that this is capable of are really short and quick and can be heard for miles. It's like a super loud whistle.
Yep.
And just made out of plastic, lightweight. That's kind of one of the things about this kind of larger style whistle is maybe it's a little more durable, but I really don't feel like that's something that should be taken into account. I'd rather kind of focus on the weight and size ratio of a whistle, in this type of situation where we're rebuilding the bug out bag. And then I also have a Mark 31 signal kit. This is kind of a military thing that's used commonly for signaling. So it's got a couple of red flares, a couple of white flares, and a couple of green flares. You can find these on eBay and things like that. They're just kind of surplus items. Sometimes you can find them in surplus stores too. But it's basically a signal flare launcher. So you basically screw in the signal flare itself, and then you press the little thing. It's kind of like a little detonator. For you military guys that have ever been around them, probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But you just kind of throw the detonator or the launcher to the side, and it hits a little pin and makes contact with the flare to launch it. So I like those because they're small and compact. However, you can get signal flares that are made for like carrying on a boat or something like that. So there's kind of still small-sized flares that you can get, but I'd highly recommend some kind of signaling flare system to put into a kit as well. But really, when I'm looking at this overall, the only things that I would really do to this portion of my kit would be to just carry the MPIL rather than the cut-down VS17, as well as the MPIL.
And you're losing a little bit of real estate on the panel, but at the same time, that's so lightweight and still highly visible.
Yeah, and that's a good sacrifice for me, or a good trade-off, is I'd rather carry something that's lighter weight and maybe a little smaller than something that's heavier and maybe a little larger. And then I'd still carry the same number of Chemlights, just because I think there's so many applications for Chemlights. It's also really good for marking people at night. So if you're trying to stay together while you're moving at night, yes, there's always the I don't want to be seen thing, but usually that's not an issue. You're really just trying to get from point A to point B. Whether you're seen or not is really inconsequential. It's better to be identified and not get separated. So that's what Chemlights can do too. You can hang one of these off each backpack of the people in the group you're with. That's one of the primary purposes for these too. So and then just kind of identification too. And like I mentioned with the buzzsaw, I'd keep that keyless whistle. I would also keep the full-size signal mirror, and I would keep my little signal flare kit. So I've definitely condensed all this, and outside of the Chemlights, everything will fit into like a little lock sack bag too. And that's one thing I'm going to do, is that I'm going to put everything in here to kind of help keep it a little more waterproof. So the signal flares themselves don't really have to be in a waterproof container. However, I want to keep these out of the elements. I don't want that to get ruined at all. And not that the MPIL getting wet would cut down on its efficiency or being able to do what it was designed to do. However, I like keeping stuff dry.
It helps to group things together too.
That
so
too.
Like when you're picking it out, it's like, this is my signaling bag.
Yeah.
And that's what I have in there.
And that's really what I had that for in the beginning. Everything was kind of in this bag, but it's just a cheapo, maybe 3 mil, just regular Ziploc. Like, it's not really going to protect it in terms of
you get the
water.
peace of mind of the lock sack.
Yeah, exactly. And they're durable. I mean, however, they're not foolproof, meaning that if it gets bumped around in the bag and bumped up against other stuff, they can produce little pinholes too that can leak or have the potential to leak. So just something to keep in mind as you're loading your bag with that stuff. What do you have for signaling? Like, what would you?
I like the MPILs, the Chemlights. I always try to keep Chemlights with cordage on them, whether it's the Type 1 or sometimes I'll do like just a paracord loop so I can girth hitch it.
Like the gut from a paracord?
No, I'll do an actual strand of 550, like the whole thing through the little hole in the top. I've had instances where like I'll have somebody come in to meet me at a campsite at night. And you could say like, hey, I hung a Chemlight in the tree, that kind of stuff. I have the signal mirror. I don't have the cover on it. I'm going to have to look into that cover because I really like that. Because that is one of my issues is I have to keep that rolled up in like a handkerchief.
To prevent it from getting scratched.
Yeah. And then I have a P-less whistle that's like, it's like the one you had, but without a P in it. And I got it, I think, on Amazon. But I want to get one of these flat ones because that's a much better profile.
Yeah, I like it. It's probably the best one I've found in terms of size and weight and dependability.
Yeah.
I like it. It's actually what should have been hanging on our UDT vests when I was in the Navy.
Yeah. I bet those were cheaper.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, they're, issued too. They probably have an NSN versus this, which doesn't. So I don't even know if this was around back when I was going through buds, but
yeah, and the only difference is I keep 2 colors of Chemlights, not for any particular reason, but I've seen sometimes when you're denoting direction, it can help to have red on the right side, green on the left, if it's even a person or a boat or something. But yeah, Chemlights
I always
great.
remember that too from hanging them off boats to be identified. So that's typically what you use on the water too with any kind of vessel is that you have a light that's red from the starboard and you have a green light from the port side. And that's just kind of the common delineation for boats, just so you can see which side is coming at you or which side.
We did that at a muster, and that was the first time I'd seen that, and I remember seeing the boats
Yep.
And just you can immediately recognize the path of the boat,
Yeah.
which direction they're traveling because you know what side that they're on, which
it's
is
kinda-
really, really
kinda
helpful.
cool.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that's kind of signaling in a nutshell. I won't get too wrapped up around the axle with this topic, but I really think that if I were to kind of categorize signaling as a whole, the types of identification you need are, getting somebody's attention dynamically and then statically. So, dynamic, I would kind of go with the whatever this is.
Buzzsaw, Chemlight.
Buzzsaw, thank you.
You could use a flashlight.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I didn't mention too, is that I always have my Streamlight flashlight on me too. So
Yep.
that would be with me no matter what, and I can use that for signaling too.
Yep.
And you should know kind of the basics of Morse code too. It's 3 dots and then 3 dashes is the universal sign for help. So learning that will help you too, and that's just a simple.
Yeah, you do 3
thing.
short, 3 long, 3 short for
Yep.
SOS.
Yep.
And you can do Morse on other things too. If you're able to conceal a light or something, if you don't have a flashlight, flashlight's the most effective.
Yep.
But yeah, and then you were talking about static is like the MPIL for signaling. Like if you were to put this out, if somebody was flying over, you could point. One of the cool things I like to see is like people will make arrows out of them. You fold the corners in so you could, if you did have a search and rescue vehicle coming in or something, they could see like this direction, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's another kind of military usage for VS-17s is you can turn them into different meanings. There's a whole code on this kind of stuff that you can research online, and I'll try to link to it in the episode until I think we've gone over it in an article on ITS at some point. But there's kind of a universal code for just folding in 1 corner versus 2 corners or 3 corners, things like that. So you can kind of make these different shapes to delineate different signals,
That's
if
pretty
you
cool.
will. Yeah. But then, obviously signal flares are more of a dynamic attention-getting thing too. However, a whistle could be both. I mean, a whistle could be like I dynamically want to get that guy's attention that I'm looking at, or I'm just producing the SOS signal, every hour on the hour or something like that.
If you really wanted to get crazy with it and you could plug your ears up, you could just put it in your mouth and breathe. Like if you needed to just sit and really draw attention.
maybe earplugs should be in the signal kit.
Yeah, that's loud.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's signaling in a nutshell. I really think that you can't replicate this type of material in a pinch if you need it. Like this is really stuff that really needs to be carried with you. Like, yes, you could yell, and yes, I could build a signal fire with some, throwing some wet or green wood on my fire and, producing smoke. So, I mean, smoke is a great indicator as well, if you're trapped and you don't have this kind of stuff. But I would rather carry items like this. And I can always still build a signal fire. However, having this stuff at my disposal could, can mean a lot if I needed it. Thanks for listening to Gear Tasting Radio. Remember, if you have any questions, use the pound tag Gear Tasting and social media network, and we'll find them and get them answered for you. Next week on the show is our centennial episode number 100. So we're going to take a little break from our bug out bag issues that we've been fixing along the way and do something special for the show. So tune in next week for that. Remember to check out our crew leader membership linked in the episode intel. It allows us to give you back something in return for your support and helping the show grow. Even if you can't monetarily donate to our crew leader membership, just remember we also would love any kind of feedback you have on iTunes. Hopefully it's a 5-star review. The more that you rate and review our show on iTunes, the more eyes that they show it to, and the more attention we will get on our podcast, which would very much be appreciated. Remember to check out the episode intel, too. We've got a lot of links on some of the stuff that we went over in the show, not only information-wise, but product-wise, too. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.